Week 4 in the books, and the league is looking a whole lot different than it did last week. We have a week where the lower rated team won every single matchup. We had two 0-3 teams heading into the week. Both got wins. Two 3-0 teams heading into the week. Both lost. Parity in the league is really unmatched. The league is shaping up to be, this is going to be one of the best seasons in the league. Reason being, you rarely get a season where Toe and Tarek are both in contention. Seems like that's going to be happening. We have myself potentially rising from the ashes. We have Aiko, who seems like he's going to be hanging around. So those are really the elements you need for a good season. I'll take one of the two King brothers also along for the ride if we're really just trying to make the season as fun and interesting as possible. And you can throw Chappie in there too, which it seems like he's fading a little bit, but all the elements are there this year to really have something special. So we're just going to fire off some quick notes, and then we're going to go through the power rankings and be done with it. But that'll probably take like 30 minutes plus. First things first, it has to be discussed. Toe is rampaging through the league right now. And the ratio heads out to the House Togarian this week. And it's really, we're not expecting to win. We're just grateful for the opportunity to be facing such a good team. It's a learning experience for us. It's not very often you get to face the eventual champion early on in the season. And you just want to get reps in. You want to work on things and really just have an air of gratitude about you just all week long. I mean, it's not really a serious thing that we can win. It's just like, we're happy to be here. It's going to be fun. We're grateful for the opportunity. If you look at Toe, 6,100 points. And I did put up some good points this week, which was crucial. I'm kind of back in the points mix here. Everyone outside of Toe, really. Borg's kind of up there. Zell's up there. But really, I was getting nervous about the points. The points this week was big for me. But yeah, we're just heading out to Toe. We're really grateful for the opportunity this week. It'll be a fun one. And we're not facing Toe at 100% capability. We're facing Toe at 120% capability. We have Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley firing on all cylinders. We have Jamal Williams in the lineup, who is now on Alpha RB1. We have T. Higgins, who, as I said, he's the number one wide receiver on the Bengals. And when you look at him next to Chase, isn't it obvious? Like, you just feel dumb when you're like, oh, wow, there's this 6'5", pure athletic specimen that I could have had 2 rounds later. But I decided to take like the small, undersized, kind of slow outside wide receiver that has like no real big playability unless it's a pure fluke. Can't feel great. Another thing that just has to be discussed. A lot of you guys probably aren't aware of this. You're not getting the most out of your membership if you are not doing the dance all week long in your lineups with Aiko. When you're playing against Aiko, it's really just a thing to behold. The nonverbal communication that goes on in the matchup on the app, in the matchup tab, when you're playing Aiko, it's just a week long. Like you're communicating with him. It's like, okay, Keenan Allen's in the lineup. And then I wake up on Thursday morning and it's like, Keenan Allen's probably out this week. And then I'm like, okay, is Aiko, like, I just want to see how quick this guy is with it. He's immediately out of the lineup. Sometimes he'll put in like a plug and play Julio Jones. Maybe he'll put like to throw off the scent, he'll put someone else in his starting lineup. It's just a week-long dance. And if you're not doing the dance with Aiko like I did this week, you're just really leaving some fun on the table. And I know a lot of you guys don't do it. And then we have a commentary on what is a good fantasy manager. Now, first thing, I think there's 2 ends of this spectrum. There is the people, so you kind of weigh things like proven talent versus early season or like previous few game performance. How much weight do you put on these 2 different things? And I'm starting to realize this is where the major differences are when I'm communicating with people about trades. So like, for example, you have Kevo, who purely rates every player based on last week. So like if Derrick Henry goes like 10 for 25, no touchdowns, Derrick Henry is on the trading block for Darrell Henderson. Like that's a potential trade that could happen. Myself, I do find myself weighing things more like statically. So like if DJ Moore sucks for 4 weeks, like I'm still probably starting him and I kind of am thinking he's still going to be top 20-ish. Things can change. Like if he's playing terrible, like Allen Robinson, I immediately was like, pull the ripcord. This guy's bad now. That was obvious. Sometimes it's okay to react like that. Generally, I'm more measured in my reactions, and I have been thinking that maybe this is a leak in my game, because if I look back at some of my big trades in previous years, I've been doing what I perceive as a sell high, and I'm buying low on like a proven star that's been underperforming, and a lot of the times my sell high continues to just perform at a high level. So like this week, Miles Sanders, you're looking at, like, could be the dream sell high maybe. I hate this thing when they're like, FantasyCast is brought to you ad-free today, after an ad. How does that make sense? So yeah, you could be looking at my team and like the obvious sell high candidate is Miles Sanders. I mean, he's probably a low-end RB1. Just like, why not just keep him? 13, 17, 15, 27. 27 carries in the best offense in football. So yeah, I've just been kind of analyzing, thinking about that aspect of my game a little bit more. Another thing I'm realizing, I've kind of taken notes a lot more this year about for next year's draft, is like the receivers like Devonta Smith, Juju Smith-Schuster. So like you pay like $6 to $10 or whatever for them, and the real range of outcomes is like if they perform where you're drafting them, which is like wide receiver 30, their actual value is like $1. The $6 payment is like in the hopes that they become wide receiver 20 or something, because wide receiver 30 is untradeable. It's worth nothing because everyone thinks they can get wide receiver 30 off waivers. So like you can't really trade Devonta Smith, Juju Smith-Schuster. You can't trade them. I don't know what that means, but I've just been taking notes of that. And then I think a big discrepancy in the league is like how much you value lottery ticket running backs. So like Jaylen Warren. I feel like Jaylen Warren, Chapman values him at like a 0. Like he would rather have Chase Daniels. And I value him quite highly. So like if you want to buy Jaylen Warren from me for fab, like 300 fab. I'm pretty certain Jaylen Warren is going to matter this year. But that's a big discrepancy in the league. Like a lot of people don't value those type of players very much. And then my trade this week, I'm really just talking about my team right now. But my trade this week, I was definitely having some second guessing, because like I give Aiko a quarterback when really I need the win. So like it may not have been the best decision to give him a starting quarterback when he didn't have one. My thoughts were he'll probably get a quarterback from somewhere else. I get some good insurance. I'm mainly still building. Like I believed in my team pretty strongly heading into week 4, despite not really seeing much on the field from them. And usually I'm like getting panicked at this point. If I'm 1-2, not a lot of points. But this year I was just feeling like, let's wait and see. Let's not overreact. I think one of my errors is a little bit of overreactions and making too many trades when maybe things are going to be okay. And then I'm getting Freiermuth, which is like, I was thinking a solid year-long starting tight end, but I may already have one. Like maybe Everett already is that. And then this is where the real managerial genius comes in, where I make moves that no one else will make. Starting Gerald Everett this week. Didn't make the biggest difference, really just a 26-point difference. But I trade Aiko a starting QB to get Freiermuth. Then I hear that Keenan Allen's out, and I still fire in Jared Everett. No one else is doing that. Facts. And then it has to be discussed, the Julio Jones plug and play, just really not a good move. Yeah, just not a great move. I guess it is a little bit better when you're like in catch-up mode and you're trying to hit a home run with like a 3-touchdown Tom Brady, Julio Jones type of thing, but not a great play. Maybe you're thinking Julio Jones has more year-long value or something, but like it's not great. And then the main thing that makes a good fantasy manager, which many of you don't seem to understand, is... So you go through the draft. Obviously, it's skill-based, but it's also a lot of luck. So, like, I'm drafting better than everyone in the league. But there's still times where like you just don't get lucky. So like, like DJ Moore, consensus value like wide receiver 12 to 15, but he's wide receiver 50. Like you're going to get some of those. You're also going to get some Miles Sanders where he's consensus like running back 25. He's RB8 right now, probably low end RB1. Yeah, there's some coin flips. Luck kind of has to go your way. The draft is like a 50-50 luck skill game. But the intra-season management of the bench, the churning of the bench, is 100% skill, reliable, just effort plays. It's basically the effort play of fantasy football. And it's why I continually dominate. I wouldn't say dominate anymore, but why I continually perform amongst the best in the league. Some of you guys just completely neglect this. Like Zell, Borg. I mean, if you're not making waiver moves, what are you doing? You're never going to win. Yeah, so like Zell's bench is stacked, which I think is kind of by design, so he doesn't have to be active. But like if you're making one transaction, you're just not going to win. You have no chance of winning. Chappie's bench is a barren wasteland, and he only has five pickups. You're just not going to win. You have no chance of winning. Unless you hit a home run in the draft and no one gets injured, you have no chance of winning. And I'm starting to also pick up on the managerial styles of you guys. Toe has the temperament of a person that manages from the front. He even does this when he's managing from the back, which is why he rarely like turns his team around and comes back. He's very like high. If a player is on his team, it's automatically 30% more valuable to him than the player that is on the opposing team. So for that reason, he rarely makes trades. I don't think I've ever made a trade with Toe, actually. Could be wrong. Maybe like a small minor, like backup QB type thing. But like I'm like earlier in the season, I'm like, how much for Chunk Play May? And he's like, Chunk Play plus Higgins for Jefferson. It's like, okay, so you don't want to trade Chunk Play? But yeah, Toe has the mentality to manage from the front. I think I have more of the mentality to manage from the back, and I have in the past, I think, blown some leads trying to manage from the front. King obviously has more of a turnaround team mentality. Aiko, small sample size, but it seems like he's good at managing from the front. He loves like just planning out the entire season's matchups. Other people are less well known. I mean, Elway doesn't really, he's a slow reactor. He doesn't panic much. He really plays the wait and see game. Chappie's just kind of a wild card. And Zell and Borg don't manage. Tarek is also a little bit of a wild card. He likes to wait and see. But I wouldn't lean one way or another. We haven't seen him manage from the front too often. And Hoot is also kind of unknown. What does it take to be a good manager? Different managing styles. That's the segment. Okay, for the power ranks this week, the top and bottom is relatively unchanged, but we got a big shakeup in the middle. So again, I'm mostly weighing this based on your roster. The record is starting to weigh a little bit more heavily, but if you have the roster that I think can still get the job done, I'm gonna weigh that pretty strongly. So, starting out at the number 12 team in the league, we have Lou. He's getting a little bit more production out of the quarterbacks. Obviously got a splode from Penny this week, but he's going to be fading. The running backs every week is kind of like a toss-up. Chase Edmonds, I mean, how many times is this guy going to, like, everyone thinks he's going to be good, but he's just actually really terrible. Like, he's being displaced by a 30-year-old speed running back who should be, like, losing speed. But he's significantly better than Chase Edmonds. Still searching at tight end. Receivers, which you kind of thought maybe would be the strong point of the team, are not looking that strong. I mean, he's really just, like, has some Hail Mary stuff on the bench. But, like, overall, I mean, when Hopkins comes back, what is he? Like, wide receiver 16 or something? Like, probably nothing crazy good. Isn't he, like, 30 years old? think he's 30, which isn't too old for a receiver, but yeah, Lou's team is on life support for sure. If I'm managing his team, I feel like you need stability at running back. That's probably priority number one. You can put together some receiving lineups that are probably fine. You need a decent performance out of your quarterbacks, and then the main variable, you got a lot of dud potential at running back. Mixon will be fine, but like outside of that, I'm not seeing a lot. Stevenson has not gotten a start yet for the Neeks, I don't think, but should be maybe in line for a start next week. I haven't looked too much into matchups and stuff. Really just the top end talent is not there. Pittman has been underperforming, and questions are starting to come up with Pittman. Could he be a fake alpha? Is it possible? So that's Lou at number 12. Next up, also unchanged from last week, we have Wes Telly. Squeezed out a win, and he's kind of miraculously putting together some games while he's waiting for Dak to come back, and it seems like it could be another Cinderella season for the guy. So Mariota is who we thought he was, essentially. 7 completions, I believe, this week. 7 for 19, 36% completion percentage, which is actually horrendous when you think about how good they were running the ball. 5 carries for 3 yards. But he does have Dak Prescott coming back. Soon. Trevor Lawrence, kind of a wild card. Maybe he becomes a top 10 QB. He could also suck. Still to be determined. And then we got some questions coming up at running back. So the man that spent $120 at the position is now down to Dalvin Cook, Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson. What's he doing at RB2? That's the question. That is a big hole to fill, and it does not look like there's any answers in sight. At receiver, things are looking up. The trade, I would have to say, worked out well for both teams because Olave is a gem. Olave is going to be fine, especially with Jameis back. You got to think he's better with Jameis than he is with Dalton. Gabe Davis, he's always been a fugazi, in my opinion, but he's playing every snap on one of the best offenses in football. He'll probably be fine. I just think he won't be great. He'll be like wide receiver 25. Starter every week. Some boom-bust potential. But the trade makes sense for Toe also because he got the best player in the deal. And when you're managing from the front, you can lose trades as long as you upgrade at the position, and I think it's probably fine. Judy just really can't put it together. Can't put it all together, can he? He's scoring touchdowns, but you got to think he's like a 5 touchdown a year guy probably. And if you look at his stats without touchdowns, pretty horrible. Pretty horrible. King still has a lot of work to do. Just not a lot of potential really on the bench either. He's got Dalton Schultz. He has 2 good tight ends. Higbee's looking solid. Yeah, King is definitely back of the pack still. Next up, number 10, we have Elway. Unchanged also from last week. Okay, so worth noting, he does only have 88 fab dollars left. Quarterback 2 is a concern. Matt Ryan is completely done. That is established. He's got Dalton on the bench, no real quarterback help. Running backs, when you think if they're firing on all cylinders, should be very, very solid. Probably one of the best running back duos in the league. Receivers, the more I watch Debo, the more he is the real deal. Like, he's just, there's really no one that is like a yak machine like him. Like, the run yesterday was just crazy. You don't see people do that. And is he fast? Like, how fast is he? I don't recall him being like 4.3 speed, but that's what he looks like. Some people just look a lot faster in pads. He seems like he's one of those guys. But you got to figure out the receiver position. That's the big hole on this team. And he's stocking the bench. McKenzie looks like he could be the answer. But, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys. You probably got to churn the bench a little bit. Claypool's cuttable. Landry, probably want to hold on to him. Devontae Parker seems cuttable to me, but he had one big game, and I know you guys like the guy who had a big game last week. Andrews got the tight end position locked up, so he has the top tier talent. It's just really the bottom of the roster. There is no bottom. So that's the thing. You need some high floor receivers or something just to stabilize the starting lineup. Elway has potential. If things start turning around, Burrow putting up 300 a game, you're getting 300-point games from your running backs. If you get 300-point games from your two running backs, you're pretty much unbeatable in fantasy football. Elway still in the mix, definitely more so than the last two teams. Then we have the big dropper of the week, Ryan Borg. Down 5 spots from last week. He's at number 9. Still, as you can see, a pretty pristine free agent budget. I expect it to stay that way until he overspends by like 400 on a random guy one week just to make it look like he's playing. Lamar Jackson has been a god for the first 4 weeks, except last week he wasn't great, but you have to expect that to normalize a little bit. Like, I doubt he averages 322. I doubt Carson Wentz averages 200. So Borg his efficiency is firing on all cylinders right now. You expect that to drop off. Najee Harris is he's like the biggest trap running back ever. You can't trade him. You have to start him every week, but you know he's going to suck. It's not a great situation. Yeah, it's almost like this guy could just like lose the entire season for you because you have to start him. He's never going to be good. Pretty much the worst possible scenario. Damian Harris also. He seems to have a little more touchdown potential. The receivers have been decent so far for what they are. They're going to fade, you would think, throughout the year, especially Marquise Brown, maybe when Hopkins comes back. Pitts, tight end 21. I was thinking, I think Kyle Pitts on the field is indistinguishable from Michael Thomas. They're the exact same person. And it's just like, I say it all the time, but like, what's the advantage of having a tight end that you just play as a wide receiver? He's just really slow and like, I don't know. It's not great. It doesn't seem to be working well. James Conner, kind of questionable at this point as well. It seems like everyone is just assuming Deshaun Watson steps in week 12 or whatever and dominates. I'm a little skeptical of that. I feel like we don't know that he's actually a good quarterback still. He's had, like 2 good seasons probably with Hopkins and like a really good offense. Probably partially to his credit, but I'm not like people think he's like top 5 QB. Like he's not top 5 QB. I think he'll probably be fine. Definitely an upgrade over Wentz, but like it's not going to be some kind of league-breaking thing. So Godwin maybe turns into something. Hawkinson, big dog Hawkinson. Yeah, I mean the bench is. This is what you see is what you get with Borg. So this is his bench for the year. It'll be serviceable, but yeah, Borg's going to fade. Borg is definitely going to fade, and I kind of have him priced appropriately here. At the 9 spot, it's kind of foreshadowing the lack of involvement in the league, which will eventually lead to his demise. And then next up at number 8, down 2 spots, we have Hoot. And this is a lot factoring in the injury to Javonte, who has not been panning out thus far also, did he drop him? He may have dropped him. You know, getting good performance out of the stars, Kupp. He's got some running backs that you would think get better as the season goes on, although I don't know if A.J. Dillon will. Seems like Breece Hall could. Goddard, I like. Seems like Kirk may have been a locker drop. I think Kirk was a locker drop. He got 9 targets, but like the touchdown rate is obviously not going to persist. I guess I don't know what you're expecting out of Kirk, but I'm imagining him like wide receiver 25. Who does a pretty good job of churning the bench, but like he just blows a lot of value and money on like the statistical outlier from last week. So like Donovan Peoples-Jones, why is he even still on your team? The sunk cost fallacy. That's why he's on your team. You can cut him. He's not good. He doesn't need to be rostered. Aguilar also is cuttable. You're getting under 6 targets every single week on the New England Patriots. Doesn't need to be rostered. Dortch was a locker drop. Yeah, Hoot, it's going to be, I think, tough for him to climb out of the hole. Maybe Renfro shows something, but it seems like, I don't know, it seems like maybe there's 10 targets in week 2. Yeah, Renfro could show something. But overall, it seems like Kupp's ceiling is even a little limited this year because the offense is not great. So if I'm Hoot, I don't really know what you do with this roster. I don't think you can win with it. I think maybe you got some pieces. So like maybe you trade Kupp. It's tough to trade away a guaranteed 200 points a week. Maybe you trade Kupp, maybe you trade Herbert. You know what? You can't really trust Zach Wilson yet. Although he looks not bad. But yeah, Hoot in at number 8. Then we got Liggy. Liggy is going to be number 7, unchanged from last week. I do have to say, though, Chappie's team by the week is looking worse and worse. So he does pick up JT, who seems like he dudded last week and could be out this week. Seems like Stafford was a locker drop. This guy's been terrible. This guy's Justin Fields level performance. And really, like, what's the difference between Stafford and Jameis Winston? I don't really know, except that Stafford throws for less touchdowns and yards generally. Interceptions are the same. Fumbles are the same. Just the yardage and touchdowns are worse. Stafford seems like it's going to be a year-long problem. Tannehill, yeah, the QB production is just, it's problematic. Jamar Chase, probably wide receiver 15. Waddle seems like maybe top 10 with Tua, but wide range of outcomes. He could fade. And DK Metcalf had a good game. Still yet to be determined. I still think he's probably going to be pretty bad. But he's getting targets. Yeah, he's an every week starter. He's got Ezekiel Elliott, who's been fine, I guess. Now, this is where you can tell Chapman just really doesn't know what he's doing at all. Like, Chase Daniel still on the bench. Why? Why is Chase Daniel still on the bench? He's got 6 QBs on the roster. 6 QBs on the roster. So instead of 6 QBs, you could be having some lottery ticket upside players here that could eventually start for you at running back or flex. He does have the all-in Pittsburgh possibility now. George Pickens could develop into something. Chappie's team still has some potential. It just looks like he's going to fade throughout the season. So he is at number 7. At number 6, we have a big mover to the upside this week. It is Kevo. Despite being one of the worst managers in the league, I will say that. Oh wait, I got the wrong sheet up here for Kevo. This is Kevo's roster. So here's what we have for Kevo, and I just forgot to sum this up. Currently, the roster weighs in at 3,625 pounds. And the names we have highlighted in red here are where he could probably improve. I don't think Aaron Jones at 207 pounds is really a good scheme fit. Tyreek Hill, obviously not a good scheme fit at 191 pounds. Robbie Anderson makes no sense on Kevo's roster. 190 pounds, never lifted a weight in his life. And even Kaimi Fairbairn, I think you can probably find a 220-pound kicker out there. You definitely can. Jameson Williams, 190 pounds. I would like to see this number trending upward week to week. And probably the best way to do that at this point would be getting rid of Robbie Anderson, maybe making a kicker change. And then more long-term, we try to move out Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is the most glaring scheme fit mismatch here. You can't be starting Aaron Jones with Kevo's whole mentality. But realistically, looking at the lineup, it has the star talent there. You have Mahomes, Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, Goff, QB4. You have Jared Goff as QB4 and you're 2-2. You have Tyreek Hill, wide receiver 3. Mahomes, QB3. See, this is just pure managerial ineptitude. You're getting look at the player rank of your entire starting lineup. But every single week you start a Nilbaum or two. It's really inexcusable, and it's all about the roster churn. You have two defenses. Why? You have, I mean, Jamison Williams, I guess, it's good stash. You have two tight ends. I think you probably forgot to remove your bid for Njoku, is my theory on why you bid like $1 million after trading for Conklin. You have Brissett. I mean, every single thing on your bench should be a receiver, pretty much. You don't need Njoku. Hilliard, I guess. But even like if Henry gets hurt, is Dontrell Hilliard really going to like do a lot for you? Maybe. Probably not. Saints D, why? Like, is this like an undroppable defense to you? Look, you can drop the Saints defense. It's okay. Yeah, Kevo really underperforming with what seems to be a great top end of the roster. But he is up 3 spots from last week. Now we have a mover to the downside. Aiko down 2 spots from last week, suffering a tough loss to me. And, you know, you can look at the trade, which was Freiermuth for Rachaad White and Hoyer. And it seems like a lot of the time, as soon as a trade happens, the person gets injured. But you can kind of see there is potential with Rachaad White, so maybe Aiko is not fully regretting the trade, because he also has Zach Ertz, who's tight end 4. Definitely some good insurance on Fournette. Quarterbacks underperforming thus far, but you got to still have a little bit of confidence in them. Running backs, top tier. Got RB1. You got a guy getting a ton of work. Have not gotten Keenan Allen on the field much, but in what we've seen from him, he seems to be the same old Keenan Allen. I guess, are we sure about that? 4 targets. I forget when he got injured. Did he get injured in the game? He'll probably be fine. Curtis Samuel, the cracks are starting to show a little bit. Thielen is plugged into the lineup. So yeah, the receiving core needs some help. He's got Deontay Johnson playing the hot hand. See, so this is just a difference of philosophy. Like, I'm never starting Thielen over Deontay Johnson. But a lot of people play the hot hand approach. Aiko still has a solid team. He has a contender. Chubb looks like he's going to be week to week dominant. Diggs looks like he'll be pretty dominant week to week. You get some QB production. You find something at receiver. He thought Curtis Samuel was going to be that something, but turns out he might not be. You'd really like to get a solid wide receiver too. That would make Aiko sleep easily at night. As it is, he's a little worried. Can Keenan Allen become the guaranteed wide receiver too? Maybe. Still, things are looking pretty good for Aiko. Then at number 4, big mover to the upside this week, the ratio. We are back in the points mix. We are 2-2. We have a big matchup this week. It's not one that we can seriously consider winning, but it is one that we can be grateful for the opportunity to even be on the same field as a team like the House Togarian this week. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a learning experience for us. So looking at the roster, you know, the QB performance has been horrendous, but despite that, we are still performing pretty well. We're putting up good points. Eckler finally exploded, which was nice. I have to check like the snap counts. It seemed like from what I saw, his snaps were up, but I'd like to confirm that. Miles Sanders. Obviously, there's some factors that maybe played into him getting 27 carries. And despite the first 3 weeks, he was getting, I think, like 55% of snaps, but it seems like when they want to run, he's in there. Like, he's getting majority of the carries. Probably 80+% of the carries. So Miles Sanders is going to be solid. He's low-end RB1 to me. Jefferson, super solid, of course. So I got like 3 kind of locked in. Mike Evans, obviously, is a lock-in. Looking great. Just like the red zone target monster. Gerald Everett, got Freiermuth. Probably going to go I don't know this week. maybe one more week of Everett. We're trying to move Everett out, but it doesn't seem like too much people need tight ends right now. And then Devonta. So really in my lineup, it's like if I see something from DJ Moore, it would be amazing. This week was not bad. He got 10 targets, 11 targets. Like, I'm fine with 91. It's not the worst. I don't expect him to score too many TDs. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with the receiving core. I think DJ Moore will slowly become like wide receiver 20 if he keeps getting the usage that he's getting now. It's just really got to figure something out at QB. I'm trying to make a trade for QBs. If you're open to a Justin Fields trade, let me know. I mean, when I send you guys Justin Fields trades, I'm realizing that Justin Fields is very bad. Like, that's why the other people I'm putting in the trades are there. I'm not like trying to pull the wool over your eyes and like trick you into thinking Justin Fields is a good QB. But I mean, he's like, if you want some potential upside, he's rushing a lot. Maybe he figures out the throwing at some point. He's not a terrible like team turnaround story guy. If you think your team sucks, Justin Fields is for you. Could turn your team around, maybe. Seems unlikely, but it's possible. And then we have at number 3, up 2 spots from last week, we have Zell. And I hesitate to put him here just because he doesn't manage his team, but he has a team where managing it is not that necessary. Really, you just have to check in on Sunday morning, put in the guys you think are going to do good that week, and then fall asleep. Patterson gets injured, which is kind of a blow, running back 10. He's got the QBs, which are just going to be solid. Cousins, he's going to have his ups and downs, but, you know, you're happy with him every week. CEH, obviously the statistical outlier of all time thus far into the season. He'll fade, but he has Dobbins on the bench. Maybe ETN turns into something at some point. We could run into some running back trouble here with Zell. Like, if Dobbins, which is very likely, gets injured at some point, ETN never figures it out, Patterson's on IR, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire just becomes who he has been for his entire career, you could foresee some running back issues. Wide receiver, also little shaky. Yeah, I don't like Zell's team that much, but I feel kind of obligated to put him up here. He has a lot of potential on the bench. I mean, Robinson's cuttable. He is worth 4 fab, as I said after week 1. Definitely worth 4 fab. You can cut him. I don't even think people would pick him up if you cut him, really. He has Michael Thomas, who I'm pretty low on. MVS is cuttable. Russell Gage, probably cuttable. Romeo Doubs could turn into something. And you have Garoppolo. Seems like a trade piece to me, but I know that that won't happen. But yeah, I'm pretty low. I wouldn't have Zell really at 3, I don't think, just based on roster. But he does have the points. He has the record. So when you kind of take all of those factors into account, you got to put him near the top. Next up, barely hung on to his number 2 position due to injury this week. Tough week for the mysteries. Things kind of turning in his favor a little bit here, though. So he has to figure out QB. Tua's out. He has Kyler Murray, who is QB7. Despite me saying he kind of sucks, he did put up some good points this week. And I was kind of thinking, like, if you're with like a first overall draft pick, what's the break-even point? Are you happy with Kyler Murray as a number 1 overall draft pick? I think you probably are. I think you definitely are, right? But I'm wondering where the break-even point is. Is it like Daniel Jones? Is it that low? Where you get like a starter for 4 years? That's pretty good. Daniel Jones is really, like, you can always kind of see the potential, but it seems more likely that he'll just never figure it out. So he does have a big, he obviously has the Tua injury, which is to the downside. He has a Swift injury, which is to the downside, but this guy just will never, ever stay healthy. Never stays healthy. But he does have Melvin Gordon to the upside. Javante's out for the season. Can Melvin Gordon really take the reins? He seems like he still has a little bit of juice in the legs. He's getting Amon-Ra back. Now, if I'm Tarek, I'm a little concerned about Drake London. So we trade away Kirk. We are now obviously confidently rolling out Drake London every week. And he duds for us in his first start of the season. So that has to hurt. That makes questions run through your mind. Did I make a bad trade? Is Drake London going to turn it around? Questions are arising. You sleep a lot better at night when you have just one running back that's just an every week plug them in start. Tarek does not really have that. I think he thinks Singletary is that. And his usage is pretty good, but it's going to be a lot of duds. He's going to score what, like maybe 3 touchdowns this year, like 4 touchdowns. It's going to be a lot of duds. Hopefully, maybe Melvin Gordon can turn into that for him. Tarek churning the bench nicely. Algier possibly turns into that. Probably not, but it's possible. Pacheco maybe turns. Probably not either unless he's super efficient, but he looks pretty good out there. Kadarius Toney seems just like he'll never figure it out, right? Jacoby Myers, yeah. So Tarek is, all in all, we got to see what he does at QB this week. He's still definitely top to bottom, has one of the better rosters. A lot of it hinges on Amon-Ra being what we think he is now at this point. A.J. Brown, like the top 3 receivers, it's just solid production. Real solid. A.J. Brown probably is like the most boom-bust of the 3. Like Amon-Ra and Devontae are just money every week. High floor. A.J. Brown pretty high floor now, which has not been like him throughout his career, but I mean, what's his targets? 38 targets on the year? Yeah. Just imagine he starts scoring TDs. So yeah, Tar looking solid. I think when you plug Tua into his lineup, but based on what we saw from Tua, almost his entire career outside of week 2, he's been not great. I'm thinking he reverts to being not that great. And I think Tarek was buying him at like QB 7 to 10 prices. It was peak Tua value, which I alluded to. Most of my calls are just spot on. Obviously, he died, got injured, but he underthrew Tyreek by legitimately 30 yards. I didn't realize the lack of arm strength. He's very accurate, like 30 yards and under, but dang. Like the top tier arm strength, he has to be lowest in the NFL. And then number 1, we have the God King himself, House Togarian, waltzing through the entire league. He has the QB1 Jalen Hurts. He has an overperforming Daniel Jones playing at 9:30 a.m. at Green Bay, but I think it's in London. So we'll see what happens there. He's really over-indexed into the Giants at this point. He's got RB3 Jamal Williams. Wow. Travis Kelce, really having these big tight ends is a difference maker. It's nice to have. If I'm Toe, I'm happy with the Gabe Davis trade. Courtland Sutton does seem to be a more well understood commodity. Seems like he will be solid. And he should be scoring TDs, which he only has 1 so far this year. You expect him to have like 8 to 10 TDs a year. Mike Williams, I don't know about Mike. Mike could disappear. Mike Williams could disappear at some point. He'll score his touchdowns, but I don't know. With Keenan Allen back, I think there's a lot of potential for Mike Williams to disappear at some point. T. Higgins seems solid, top 10 receiver. RB2 he has pretty well sorted because his bench is full of potential RB2s. Dameon Pierce, James Robinson. There's going to be a guessing game for the start-sit decisions a lot of weeks. At wide receiver, yeah, Toe's the starting lineup solid. He has good bench depth. You really cannot argue with him being the number 1 team in the league. I would say after 4 weeks of a fantasy season, this is probably as dominant a team as I've seen. I hate to say it, but it is true. Just top to bottom. Top to bottom. I mean, really, if we're trying to poke holes in the team, it has to be Saquon and Daniel Jones just imploding and not being able. Like, they've had a really easy schedule so far. Saquon is getting an insane amount of touches. He's not really scoring TDs yet, even though. So, like, Saquon's going to get his. I think the only real, well, let's see. Tennessee, Carolina. Carolina's defense isn't terrible. Dallas, Chicago's defense isn't terrible. I mean, they played not great defenses, but nothing super easy yet. Yeah, you just got to say Toast top of the table. Okay, an hour. This video took me an hour to record. Okay, got to wrap it up. That's the week. Good luck in week 5. Bye.